What are your top three priorities for the Atlanta Police Department?
There's a lot of concern about compensation. Leadership, of course, is an issue because we must find a new police chief, given that the current one is leaving, and morale. And the third one results from the first two, is finding a police chief that's going to focus on the effective delivery of police services to make this city safe. We must find a way to increase, not just restore the furloughed police officers, but to increase the number. There was a study that was done back in 2002 that said, the Linder study, that said that Atlanta at that time needed 2,000 police officers to be on par with comparably sized cities. We've had a significant, 25% at least, increase in population since then. So clearly, the number of 2,000 is insufficient today. The talk that the formula relates to, in terms of how people decide how many officers you need, police officers per square mile or police officers per 1,000 population. And so you'd have to do the comparison to come up with the right number today. People talk about between 25, 27, 3,000 police officers to be where we need to be. But we clearly not only need to end the furloughs, but we need to increase the number of officers on the street. It is demonstrated that more officers reduce crime, and it's also from a safety standpoint. One of the things that the police officers complain about is that Atlanta is one of the cities where there's only, for instance, one police officer per car, and that makes it very difficult for more dangerous situation, where police officers are called, for instance, for domestic situations, the most dangerous situations in police work, because you got to separate the parties in that particular case. Oftentimes, one officer goes and there's no backup. So it becomes even more dangerous. So getting the right leadership in place, making sure that we're compensating officers in a way that's competitive, and then therefore dealing with the morale issue.
So what are your plans in the first 100 days? What will police officers and citizens see as a result of your commitment to these three things?
In public safety. Well, the first thing I do is continue to pursue the city's application for the funding, to the extent that it's not completed, for an additional 200 police officers on the street. If we get that funding, it will give us an opportunity to a 3-year breathing space window within which to find the funding to continue those police officers on the street. So continue that application process. The most critical issue confronting the city of Atlanta today is getting its financial house in order. Having an independent, competent CFO to lead that process, chief financial officer to lead that process, so making sure that that person's in place, and then implementing the recommendations that have been made with respect to the various departments to make them more efficient, cost effective. Everything we want to do in this city, everything that's a problem for us today, relates to the finances. So whatever we want to do must relate to getting the financial house in order. My first priority, my first commitment will be to make sure that we get our financial house in order. So with respect to public safety, it is making sure that we can afford, taking every step possible to make sure that we can afford to compensate police officers in a way that makes us competitive in the region and retain the officers that we get, but also to increase the number. Because even if we're successful with the stimulus package in 3 years, we must be able to fund those officers on our own.
Okay, as a citizen and as a candidate, are you satisfied with the performance of our existing chief?
He's resigning at the end of this year, and so there will be an opportunity to replace him by virtue of that resignation. I'm concerned that there's not a plan in place that tells us how we get to where we need to be in terms of public safety. I'm concerned that we seem to be drifting along in public safety and other areas like finances. We learn about the budgetary shortfalls, and that's very disappointing. That's very upsetting. But what's also very upsetting about that is that the management at City Hall seems to be just as surprised as we are. There's a lack of control. There's a lack of a sense of somebody being in charge. I was at a public safety hearing that was done last year where the police chief and other public safety officials were present, and the citizenry was up in arms about the sense of being unsafe, and they were coming for some comfort, some guidance, some indication of what the future would hold. And I was very disappointed, and so were they, everyone else in that meeting, to not get much reassurance that there's much that we can do from a public safety planning standpoint to address the crisis of public safety that we're in today. So we need to do better than that.
Well, one of the things the public feels is that they don't know who to hold accountable for that lack of confidence you just described. They don't know whether to hold the mayor accountable for not directing the chief or whether the chief didn't meet the mayor's directions. Will your performance expectations be a matter of public record for your direct reports?
When I am mayor of this city, there will be performance matrix for all supervisory personnel and rank and file. My commitment is to have the best people possible in positions, and they must perform. And if they do not perform, then they will be replaced. There are a lot of hardworking people in City Hall today. I know them because I know a lot of people in City Hall from my work with the city over the past years. And I would give those hardworking employees all the leadership support that they need to do their jobs in the best possible fashion. To the extent that that's not the case, then we would find replacements. But when I am mayor,
We will have a public performance matrix that we'll be able to see.
that you will see, and what I'm going to ask you to do when I am mayor is hold me accountable. Because if the job, I'm going to appoint the police chief, I'm going to appoint the commissioner of public safety, and to the extent that the job is not being done, I don't need you to call the police chief. I need you to call me, because I'm the one you put in position to make those decisions, and I'm willing and I expect you to hold me accountable to making sure that the job's done the way it's supposed to.
There's been an increase in private neighborhood security patrols with off-duty officers and private security, and many neighbors see that as a vote of no confidence for our police department. How do you feel about these supplemental neighborhood patrols?
I don't see it as a vote of no confidence in the sense of people not trusting the police department. It's the sense of feeling unsafe. And to the extent that people who feel unsafe have the wherewithal to put into place a private security force or police force that will guarantee them more safety and responsiveness than they do that. That is the first job of government, local government in particular, is public safety. And it will be my commitment to provide the type public safety in this city so that local neighborhoods will not find it necessary to develop their own police forces to protect themselves. And I think it's a failing of the police department that is what is required now for people to feel safe in the city.
Thank you. One thing that's come out of these private security patrols is our neighbors now have an expectation of community policing, a heightened expectation regarding the use of technology. How will we leverage this community enthusiasm and effort into our police department under when you're our mayor?
I talk a lot about more efficient, cost-effective delivery of services, and I talk about the cost savings to be realized from that. But that's not enough to get us where we need to be. We are in a severe economic downturn. And in order for us to get back where we want to be, where we need to be, we're going to need some help from the economy, with the economy turning around. In the meantime, we must learn to do more with less. We as a community must become more responsible for our communities and for our neighbors. And to the extent that communities can step forward to help in that effort in whatever way they can, it is to be encouraged, it is to be welcomed. And I'm hoping that when we get to the point where we can afford to have the 2,700, 3,000 police officers on the street, we will still have community involvement. We will still have neighbors looking out for neighbors, neighbors looking out for one another's kids. And so I wouldn't ever expect to discourage communities being involved and making sure that their communities are safe and productive.
Okay, there's several themes in American policing right now. One of them is community policing, another is CompStat. There's no reference on your webpage to any police issues. Can you tell us what your core philosophy is about delivery of police services?
That the communities ought to be safe. You ought to have a sufficient number of police officers on the street to make sure that the community is in fact safe, and that you ought to have officers who are committed to performing their services at the highest level. There's talk, I saw the video of the union that dealt with the disabled police officers, and the response to that from some of the police officers that said that they were less inclined to be enthusiastic about performing their duties as a result of the treatment they received from the city. My plan would be to eliminate any impediment to fully engross, committed delivery of police services by the officers on the street, and to making sure that we have the full complement needed to police our neighbors and make them safe. And that comes back again to the money. It always comes back to the money. We've talked about, even before, needing 2,000 police officers. It has never been budgeted because we've not had the money. It's been budget, not need.